Yeah, nice to meet everybody. Dirk Schempe. Yeah, I'm the CEO here at PracticeERP, and really appreciate everyone's time. So let's kind of kick it off. So Jared, do you want to get started?
Yeah, hi, I'm Jared Burke. I'm the CTO and co-founder of PracticeERP. I've spent the last 25 plus years building ERP systems, business software, technology solutions that essentially just help organizations improve how they operate. Over the course of my career, I've worked through several major technology transitions, everything from client server to web-based applications, cloud computing, mobile apps, and now the latest has been AI. And lately, I've been really leaning in to AI as part of our R&D team, building kind of AI-first applications like PracticeERP and our Playbook product. What excites me most about AI is that we're still in the early stages of this transformation. Just like the cloud changed how businesses access software, I strongly believe that AI is going to reshape how CPA firms deliver services, make decisions, and create value for their clients. So I'm basically here today to help share lessons we've learned or continue to learn, and provide some practical framework for how you think about AI, and hopefully send you away with some tips to implement AI in your own firm.
Great. So this is our first poll question of the day is, how is your organization currently using AI? You're not using it at all. We are evaluating AI solutions.
Great, thank you. That poll's up there now, so we'll give everyone about 30 seconds to respond. We have a few different options here. As Dirk had mentioned, we're not using AI today. We're evaluating AI solutions. Employees are using AI individually. We have approved AI tools and policies, or finally, we have AI integrated into business processes. So we'll get a sense of where the audience is today, and we'll shut this poll down in about 10 seconds.
So any kind of general comments, Jerome? I know if you want to quickly introduce yourself, and I don't know if you have any comments on this poll.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everybody. Jairam Padmanabhan here. I'm the Chief Product and Experience Officer at PracticeERP, having joined them recently, just over 3 months ago. I've been in the accounting industry for a very long time, primarily responsible for crafting product strategy, helping organizations expand into adjacencies, a lot of M&A work, both on the buy side as well as the sell side. And so this is a very interesting poll, actually. It's very nice to see that employees are using AI individually. Looking at the numbers over here, 30% are using that, which is great. What we're going to talk about is how can we now use some of the knowledge that we have gained from using it individually into what we do on a regular basis in our day-to-day work. So this is a great result. Good to see how people are using it.
Yeah, and things are happening so fast, right? And there's so much coming at us around AI. I mean, I always think the best way to get started is to get started, right? And that's kind of what we're seeing here.
Yeah, and it looks like most of the audience is at least dabbling in AI, but I do notice the lowest response is we have AI integrated into business processes. So is that consistent with what you're seeing with CPA firms?
I think this, we talk to a lot of firms every day. We have firms that, that are our clients that are starting to really lean into a Copilot or a Claude or different things, and we'll be talking about that as well. Even internally, we've got team members that, some are on one end of the spectrum where they're basically just living in Claude and doing all sorts of stuff, and we got other team members that are, starting to figure it out. One of the things that we've heard a lot of people, well, how do I get started? Jared has one of his favorite comments, and Jared, how do people get started with AI?
Well, I tell everybody, if you want to know how to get started with AI, just ask AI. And that sounds a little funny, but honestly, if you open up your favorite AI tool and just ask, hey, give me a plan to get started using AI, it's very informative.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. We'll shut this poll down.
All right. So I think that poll is very interesting, and I'm actually going to hit a little bit on, it represents what we see in CPA firms and even in the broader business community. Most companies are just using AI at this point to do some light automation, right? Draft emails, maybe automate some small business process, repetitive work, but they haven't really dug really deep into reframing or rethinking their processes to fully leverage what we call agentic AI. And I'm going to dig into all of this. So before we really dig into this particular slide, though, just to give you some context, the three of us are going to share different perspectives around AI. And over the next 45 minutes to an hour, we're going to hopefully move you from concepts of AI into some practical application. I'm going to start by covering some of the basics and share what I believe are some of the most important ideas that you should take away from today's presentation, especially this concept of AI delivers the greatest value when we rethink processes. So it goes to that 9% on the survey you just took. Actually getting AI embedded into your workflows and your processes is what's going to truly unlock the efficiency gains that everybody's thinking about. Dirk's then going to take you through some real examples of AI. We're going to actually have some real demonstrations. We have a couple of slides full of example prompts that you could take away today and use. And then finally, Jerome is going to focus more on okay, now how do you take it back to your firm? What's governance look like? What's adoption look like? And give you some tips how to actually go back and execute this and some takeaways. So that's what we're going to do. So taking a look at this slide, the importance of AI. I actually think that the most important word on this slide is rethink. Many firms today are asking, how do we use AI in our current processes? But the better question really is, if AI existed when we designed this process in the first place, would we design it the same way today? So what that really means is, don't think of AI as ways to just automate the exact steps that humans are doing today. Think of AI as a completely new way of executing workflows. And we're going to dig into that a little more. So ultimately, why AI matters, the importance of AI, it's not because it makes accountants faster. It's really because it's going to allow firms to rethink how work gets done. So now if we transition to the next slide and talk a little bit about, specifically around CPA firms. This is from a survey that's actually pretty astonishing, where 88% of finance and accounting leaders believe that AI is going to be the most transformative technology trend. Where you look at that 8%, most firms do not believe they're prepared to kind of manage that change. And hopefully, we're gonna help the folks on this call increase their comfort level with your preparedness for the change. And I actually look at these stats, and I think this is really good news because I believe it means we're still very early on. As we saw in the stats early from your poll, most of you are, you have individual employees using it, team members using it, but as a company, you still haven't adopted. So that means we're very early in the adoption curve, and there's lots of opportunity sitting there. I will tell you, most firms are not behind. Most firms, as Dirk stated earlier, are just trying to figure out where to start. We hear that all the time. I'm tired of hearing about concepts. I need to know how to start using AI in my firm, and hopefully you'll get some of that today. All right, so the firms that gain the advantage over the next few years are not going to be the firms that are just experimenting with AI. And I would caution everybody, you don't just need more AI tools. There's a plethora of vendors out there that have AI tools. And I think the most successful firms are going to be the ones that don't just adopt every tool that comes their way, but really looks at, okay, what tools will help us automate our specific workflows. And to do that, it's going to take rethinking how your business processes are designed with an AI first mentality. So let's talk about myth versus reality, because everybody's probably has heard or has that friend that says AI is going to replace everybody. We hear it in the CPA space a lot. Well, AI is going to replace all the accountants. Another group of AI extremists that we hear about, it says AI is too complicated, it's never going to work, it's too expensive, it's too difficult to adopt. So those are the two extremes that we hear. but really the reality is somewhere in the middle. And we do not believe AI is going to replace CPAs. We don't believe that it's going to replace the professional judgment that this industry provides. We always talk about people do business with people they know, like, and trust, and your clients know, like, and trust you, and they trust your judgment, and AI is not going to replace that. So when we talk about myth versus reality, just remember it's really somewhere in the middle of the extremes where we're landing. The goal isn't to replace CPAs. The goal is to make all of you more efficient, freeing more time to create value, spend time with your clients, continually make them know, like, and trust you, and use your judgment.
Yeah, a couple of years ago at BDO conference, there's some 2,000 people, and the speaker at the time, she was saying that basically 80% of what you do today is going to be replaced, which the crowd was pretty surprised to hear that. 20% of what you are today can be enhanced. The advisement, the experience, all of that stuff will be enhanced by AI, and you'll be able to kind of leverage, some of those more professional skills that everyone has.
That's exactly right, Dirk. So let's take a look at this. Is probably one of my favorite quotes of the last 6 months. I believe this was in an article from early February of this year. And if you just take a second to read this, it somewhat is reflective of the poll that we took just a few minutes ago. Everyone today is, most companies are experimenting with AI. They're using it to help individuals do work a little bit faster. But think about tax preparation, client onboarding, engagement management, billing approval, status reporting, and CPA firms. So most firms today have workflows where all of those functions were very heavily set up for humans to perform every step manually. Okay. The opportunity to unlock this anywhere from 2 to 10x productivity gains is really about designing workflows where AI handles the information gathering, the analysis, monitoring, summarization, recommendations. Okay, a lot of the heavy manual work. So you need to redesign those workflows to leverage AI. Humans then remain responsible for the oversight, judgment, and ultimately client relationships. So to that 80-20% that Dirk was just talking about, we need to focus on, let's let AI do the heavy lifting and the repetitive tasks and the manual work, and let's get this industry focused on client relationships and using judgment. So that's where the big productivity gains are going to happen in this industry. That's what we believe. Now, getting back to kind of fundamental, as we stated, we hear firms all the time. Okay, I don't know where to start. I've even heard some businesses come to me and they say, well, what's an agent? Is that something I have to install on Windows? Like, what is it? So there is a lot of misconception, confusion about all of these different terms. So I'm going to try to boil it down very, very simplistically. So first, I'm going to start with automation. So automation is really the simplest. It's just like you think it is. It's rule-based. It follows predefined instructions. So if you do A, then do B, then do C, and we can use AI to kind of execute those automations. Machine learning actually is used to identify patterns and predictions from data. Machine learning is probably one of the oldest uses of AI. It's been around a very long time, actually. If you think about large data and these huge databases, machine learning is just about looking at large amounts of data and making predictions and identifying patterns in that data. Generative AI is what we all, when we think about modern AI, it really starts with generative AI. When when ChatGPT first hit, and all of a sudden for those few months, everybody was going crazy. Oh, AI's here, AI's here. Well, really, we've had AI for a while, but generative AI is what really landed and caused all the kind of ruckus. Okay, but But this is exactly what you think it is. You generate emails, you generate summaries, you can generate reports, you ask it questions, you get responses. It's more or less the new search engine of the internet, right? You're just asking AI instead of going and browsing through and reading tons and tons of articles. So that's generative AI. The column here that's going to get the most attention, is getting the most attention now and will for the next couple of years, is AI agents or agentic AI. And agentic AI is where work actually gets done. This is assigning work to AI, assigning a goal to AI or to an AI agent, and allowing it to do work on your behalf. And in my opinion, we really just, the broader masses probably only have this capability in the last 6 months. As of like January and early February, the tides kind of turned from generative AI, and we actually can truly start to get things done with agentic. But we're still very, very early on. So again, don't feel bad if you haven't built an agent or if you're not using agents in your daily work. If you are, you're probably ahead of the curve. But yeah, the easiest way to think about all of this is automation follows rules, generative AI creates content, and agents perform work. So over the next few years, you're going to hear a lot about AI agents. So this next slide is something that I think is super important that not a lot of people are talking about, because AI is super, super powerful. You can point it at data sources, you can open it up to your whole organization and all your documents, and you can ask questions. The challenge is, I feel that AI is only good as the information you give it. So if your processes are inconsistent, if they're undocumented, if they're interpreted differently by different employees, we hear about businesses all the time where their core system of truth is really tribal knowledge. Oh, did you ask Bob over in tax how he does it? And that's how they train people. So if you don't have things well documented and have a source of truth for AI to go and interact with, pull information from, it's going to just pull what we call signal from your organization. And it is going to, maybe if you've heard the term hallucinate, AI does hallucinate. And that's really because it's reading from fuzzy language. So what I do when I work with a lot of our clients is one of the things, first off, we try to get them on a good system of record from a data standpoint. But we also talk about a system of truth or system of authority for their processes. And the other thing we run into is most organizations, if they do have good process documentation, those processes were written for humans, 5 or 10 years ago, before this age of AI. The future of having documented processes, you're going to have it documented in a way that's not only consumable and readable by humans, but also capable of being read very efficiently by AI. And that's what's going to truly unlock your ability to automate within an organization moving forward. So I always urge businesses, take a look at how you document things, what information you allow AI to go read within your organization, because if you just open it up and start asking questions, bad information leads to bad answers. Why Playbook? And maybe you caught me mention earlier, we actually have a product internally we call Playbook, but in the general sense, I just think of a playbook as the operating manual for how you do business. And you can do that in multiple different systems. You could use our system, you could use Word documents, but it gets down to Playbook is the one source of truth. So what we do is AI needs structure. So where does that structure come from? It defines how work should be done. It identifies what's required versus what's recommended. And again, provides that system of authority on how your business operates. So going forward, that documentation needs to be increasingly both for people and for AI. And the organizations that clearly document policies, procedures, workflows, responsibilities, they're going to have a significant advantage as we continue over the next couple of years and really get into agentic AI. So again, take that back as AI is only as good as the data and the process information you provide it. And on the next slide, this kind of brings it all together, and then I'm going to hand it over to Dirk. But this slide, I think, speaks volumes. If you have bad data and you don't have well-defined processes, your users, your users in your firm are going to have a bad experience with AI. You're going to hear responses like, well, it didn't give me the right answer. I can't trust AI, it didn't give me the answer. It isn't necessarily the technology's fault. It's really because you haven't either had a system of record or a system of authority to kind of define how your business operates and the data your business has provided. Moving down the list, good data. You get better AI answers, you probably get pretty good analytics. Like if you have a good ERP system or some good database systems in your organization, you can probably get some really nice charts and graphs and start to get some answers. To me, the holy grail here is a good system of record for good data, a system of authority like Playbook, and that's what's going to allow you to navigate these next couple of years where you get really, really good AI answers because it's only looking at authoritative information. You get good analytics because it knows the system of record. And then ultimately, you have much, much better odds of having successful automation in your organization because it knows how you do business. And that's as important as the data that your business produces. So think about that. The good data plus a playbook is really how you unlock the full potential of AI. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Dirk, and I think we have another poll question. So how many systems are you currently using to operate your firm?
Thank you. Yeah, that's poll question number 2. That should be up on everyone's screen now. So our options here are 1 to 3, 4 to 6, or 7 or more. And again, we'll keep this poll open for about 30 seconds to collect responses from the audience. Okay, let's take a quick look at the results. It's like kind of a mix out there. 42% saying 1 to 3, 40% 4 to 6, 18% 7 or more. I guess, is there a point out there where, or a telltale sign where the number of systems starts creating a real problem for CPA firms that you guys see?
Yeah, I can jump in on this one. So yeah, if we kind of do rough math, just break it into 2, right? 60% of the firms have more than 4 systems plus. To be honest, this is what we see with lots of firms is a lot of different disparate systems, right? Typically, you'll see something for time whip and billing, and then you'll see something else for maybe workflow, and something else for their like leads and prospects in CRM. Their financials is in something else. A lot of times you'll see lots of Excel spreadsheets, and then some of the legacy practice managements don't have they have poor reporting. So then you see Power BI, right? So you just see all of these kind of what I hear all the time is called tech fatigue with all of these different solutions. Jared was just going and talking about kind of system of truth and why having a system of truth matters. And in this era of AI, one of the terms I like to use is context, right? So if you have a client record in your practice management system, in your workflow system, in your tax system, in your CRM, maybe in your accounts receivable, your billing, right? And if it's not consistent, right? If you have Inc. or incorporated or just nothing, or if you sometimes have the .0 or the .00 or .1, or you represent the client 4 different times for 4 different, one for CAS, one for tax, one for assurance, right? It's going to be very difficult for any AI to have context. What is it going to do with that, right? So having a system of record you definitely will be able to, better insights, smarter decisions, trusted automation. So again, the goal for firms should be to limit your tech stack to, you'll never get down to one solution, but ideally you would want to limit that tech stack and get to, at least one or two, three systems. You ideally would have a system of truth, right? This is where the client, this is the master for our client record or our employee record or our projects or our workflow or our financials, right? And if you could tie all that together and then put an AI agent over that or an AI prompt over that, which I'll show you here in a second, it's just going to open up all sorts of insights for your company. So again, this is an example of a system of truth. This is PracticeERP. Literally everything from your leads and prospects to your client management to all of your workflow, time, WIP, and billing that then additionally updates your financials all within one system with dashboards and all that other stuff. And again, we do say this concept of the best AI is built on the best data. So, ideally, end users would, basically whatever hat you're wearing, right? So, partners would see just the information that is important to them with real-time data in their own dashboards, where staff or billing admins or managers would again see what's specific to them as well. But once we have all of this data into, a system of record or a system of truth, then we can go to various AI tools. Like Jared said, you don't have to have multiple AI tools, right? And there are some tools that, and this is evolving, right? Like a Copilot is good, but it feels like today, like a Claude is a little better. And that may change down the road, and maybe ChatGPT Pro will be better than Claude somewhere down the road. But anyways, the goal would be you'd want a system where you could connect multiple or various preferred AI tools via an MCP connector and start to prompt, right? Or be able to prompt right within the solution as well. So these are all options that you should be kind of starting to evaluate and try out. So again, these are some use cases to think about. And again, you could probably sit just on your own or in a room and come up with another 20 to 50 more use cases. So here are just some, show me engagement letters that are over the budget, right? Where our projects are over a budget, or, what's our realization and different things. What projects may be overdue or coming due, which staff members are hitting an overtime, right? Send me alerts, do different things, collections information, right? So that, again, you could easily come up with different things that you would go, maybe ask your CFO or controller or firm admin to go generate. In the future, you'll be able to just open up a prompt and start your own questioning. So I'm going to jump to Claude, and I'm actually going to show you some examples of this here. So again, we use Claude. We have some firms that use ChatGPT Pro. We can connect Copilot. What's coming very soon within PracticeERP is called NetSuite Next and Ask Oracle, which will be like Copilot. So again, they're all kind of the same. Some are a little bit better than others. But just to show you some examples here. So this is an example, and by the way, this I did like, last fall. So this is, and I'll show you how things are quickly transitioning. But show me the billing address for a client. So right, it went and found the billing address. Then, show me any open projects for this client. So again, it went and found all of those open projects. Well, I'm like, well, which ones are past due? I really should focus on the past due projects. And again, it went and found the past due projects. From here, I'm like, oh, you know what? Who are my top 10 clients with the worst AR? So I just prompted that, and it went and found those clients, and even brought back the email and phone numbers. And from there, I'm like, okay, well, can you turn that into a chart or a graph, right? And this is just standard AI stuff today, right? So, the ability to prompt, ask narratives, have it create dynamic charts, and I'll show you some even more advanced examples of this here shortly. From here, I went and asked some questions about some open invoices for a given client. And eventually I'm like, well, can you just turn this into a nice PDF? I want to share this within the firm, right? So here's just an example of, the address information was brought back. We have 23 projects that are past due. 7 are from 2023. And by the way, where agents are going to be able to come and prompting is going to be able to go to is like, okay, up for those 7 projects, go close them, right, or mark them complete, or send an alert to somebody to go deal with them, right? So again, these are real use cases, but yeah, it's highlighted and showed which ones are past due, provided critical paths. Here's the AR information, and other critical information around some key clients to focus on. But again, this is very basic AI stuff where you're just asking different things, whether it's about projects, whether it's about AR and receivables, about the client's, realizations or billings, different things like that. So this is a pretty legacy example. What I'll show you now is basically you can just start asking anything, right? So I kind of asked, well, bring me all of the WIP for 2025 for all my employees, right? And so it went and did a bunch of work, and it started building out my chart. And then I continued to just, say add a slider or add filters, right? And then I'm like, oh, change the colors to match. And then, maybe provide my top 10, top 15. So I'm just prompting and asking it to add elements to basically my dynamic chart, right? And this is, again, there's a lot of effort that goes into Power BI, and today, if you have all of the data in a trusted system of truth, literally within, it takes the AI agent some time to compile all this, but literally within a couple hours, I can now say, okay, show me my top 15 in my Dallas office. Maybe I want to, only look through a certain date range. Maybe I want to look at realization or gross profit, right? And again, I can filter, and I can do trending. And again, this is just a quick example, right? So you could ask questions about, the projects and is there enough runway to finish the work, right? So again, if you have all of that data in a trusted system of truth, you can leverage an AI to dynamically build out views. And then once these views are there, they can be used over and over again. They can be shared within your organization. So anyways, this is a pretty neat example of making a call to a system of truth and dynamically building, whatever graphs and analysis. The other part is, now once you're here, this is the other thing about AI. You should ask it, oh, so let me go back up to the top, right? So, who are my bottom 10 people, right? We should ask, what are you seeing for reason codes for low realization? What are you seeing for hours? Do you have any recommendations of tactics that I could do to help coach these people up, right? So it's not just the results. You can also ask these AI agents for ideas as well. So again, it's a new way of thinking, like Jared said initially. I'll show you a couple other quick. This was queries, right? So this is an example where we built a quick little agent to go do a time entry. So I entered the client, the service item, and the hours, and it quickly created that. Well, then I'm like, well, let's take it a little bit further. And can I have my own custom entry form, right? That I would enter, right? So this is these are examples of ways you can start to build your own forms, your own agents that completely interact with that system of truth. And then my last example is, again, within PracticeERP, we have all of the projects. The projects are completely tied to time. So I exported my projects for today. I put my time into Excel, and then I uploaded that Excel and I said, just please create time. And again, it went and successfully created those time entries. So these are some examples of doing some queries, some analysis, building charts and graphs and narratives. These are some examples of where we're doing updates or adding of records, right? So again, some other use cases I tend to think about is like, oh, I just onboarded a client and go create these 5 projects, right? So stuff like that. So again, I want to make sure Jerome has some time to talk through his section, but I just wanted to give you guys a little flavor of what's possible. And I promise you, just scratching the surface here at PracticeERP. So this is our next survey question. What is your firm's biggest barrier to AI adoption?
Great, thank you. And that poll number 3 is launched. That should be up on everyone's screen. So our options here are lack of a clear AI strategy, disconnected systems and data, security and compliance concerns, limited internal resources, or finally, we are already using AI and look to expand its use. Okay, we'll shut this poll down in about 5 seconds. Let's take a look at the results. So looks like there is quite a few people out there, almost 40%, that are saying security and compliance concerns. Is that a barrier that you often see firms concerned with when they're adopting AI?
So, it's interesting. These numbers actually mirror some data that was shared with Jared and me last week. We were at a conference, and the security and compliance concerns are very true and very real. The presenters were talking about how the data is being used and how to make sure that you don't put sensitive information online. And so this is a very real piece that we do need to address. And in fact, that's a good segue into my section in terms of what we see. But before we get into that, it's also interesting to see, I like that 11% saying that we're already using AI and looking to expand its use. So between the 11%, it would be great to do a correlation between that and the first poll, where almost a third of you have said that you have approved AI tools and have business processes already in place. So just seeing what the overlap would be wonderful. But Doug, could we go on to, anything, Doug, Jared, that you want to highlight from this data here?
The only thing I'd say about security and compliance is part of the challenge is the pace at which everything is changing. It just has not given security teams a chance to kind of find a stride where we can lock things down and truly understand. If you think about it, most of the big AI providers are releasing new models still at a pace of pretty much every 4 to 6 weeks. And so the change is pretty rapid. We continually try to keep an eye on it, but unfortunately, I don't think anybody has a crystal clear answer yet. I think there are definitely some leaders as far as governance and monitoring AI use within CPA firms. But yeah, this is a real challenge.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. So, it's a good segue into this last section here, managing AI risks responsibly. So everything, we've spoken about AI only works if we've earned the right to use it. So I don't know if you may remember from the first poll that we had, and I mentioned earlier, almost a third of the attendees have AI tools and policies or have integrated it into existing business processes. Well, that means that about 2/3 are still trying to figure out what's the best way to bring it in-house. So the key, let's start with these 5 different areas here. So the key is to address each of these. Accuracy risk. So AI, the way I look at it, it generates good output. So, it'll provide like confident sounding tax citations, a code reference, or a regulatory interpretation, but it has to be verified. I remember a good manager I had early on in my career always said that trust but verify. And today, where AI is, that's very, very true, because you still need to take a look at the answers. It does analysis very well. It does work that you give it, like the examples that Doug showed. It does that very well. But sometimes you still need to verify the output that you get from the AI tools. So the accuracy risks are true. So how do you fix that? That comes to the second section of it, the human oversight. It is essential to validate those outputs. So the danger isn't that AI is making mistakes, it's automation bias. For those of you, I remember from the earlier poll, about 30% of you are using AI individually. And you may remember, like sometimes when you ask it questions, it gives an answer, but it still has that automation bias. So the thing that we need to keep into account is that 9 times out of 10, if everything's been coming right, people would just quit checking. But it's the 10th one, the one that's wrong, that sails through, that could then cause issues later on. So the human oversight is very key when we're using AI tools. Privacy and security. We just spoke about the security and compliance concerns. I remember in the early days, there was, I think it was Samsung, whose software code was posted online, and others were able to see it, because in those days they didn't keep this into account. But nowadays, this is top of mind for everyone. Like we just saw in the poll, almost 40% said that's the biggest barrier. So that's very much still true. I think there was a KPMG survey from 2025 that showed roughly 46% of US firms have inadvertently entered confidential client information into public AI services. So the key is, again, back to the first poll that we had. You have to have approved AI tools and policies in place before you start to use them. Now let's get into the governance and responsible AI piece. So those policies, those controls and guidelines really, really help. So while the first 3 risks, accuracy, human oversight, and privacy, are symptoms, governance is the cure. So firms actually need an actual policy, written, communicated, owned by someone, and explained to the organization. And you need to cover the essentials, right? Acceptable use policy, a review and sign-off standard, a client disclosure position, because that's going to become more and more important as we start using these tools. And don't get me wrong, by the way, I love AI, the tools it's provided, and the speed with which we can get work done. But it all deals with the last piece here, responsible AI strategy. So the responsible path is deliberate, not slow. So the way I look at it is you start small, pick low risk, high value use cases, train the teams, and build the process so this adoption is safe and effective. So responsible doesn't mean you set it all out and let somebody else do it, because that causes its own risk, irrelevance, and we don't want to be irrelevant. So the key is, how do we get ready to manage all of this? And that's where I'm going to get onto the next slide and talk a little bit more about AI readiness. So the way I would start that is that it's a journey. I mean, there's a reason why the graphic is a curve, because you might get some ups and downs, but altogether you're going up. So the firms that are failing at AI aren't failing at technology. They're failing at readiness. So they bought the tool before they were ready. So firms have stalled or halted AI projects over skill shortages, not broken technology. So how do you get ready for it? So the first phase, assess your current systems. So you can't bolt on AI onto a mess. Do an honest self-audit. Is your data clean? Is it structured? Is it accessible? Or is it scattered across multiple PDFs, spreadsheets, inboxes, applications, etc.? You also need to understand what AI tools and features you're already paying for and not using. Where are the integration gaps? So you saw Dirk show some of the examples, and the reason he was able to pull those examples together is the fact that the data is all in a single place and it's easy to do the analysis. Also, yeah, there was another poll. I'm just going to refer to the earlier poll. Almost 60% of you have over 4 different systems. So what does that mean? It means that the overall AI readiness is more complex. So AI amplifies what it's built on. So if you're built on very complex systems, AI is just going to amplify it and make it even more complex. So you need to truly assess where you are today and how you're going to bring AI into the picture. The next step, of course, is to identify high-value use cases, define the objectives and outcomes. So most firms start with the shiniest use case, not the smartest. So you need to look at processes that are high volume, repetitive, low judgment, clear ROI to start off. So it could be as simple as document extraction or data entry, AP, AR, first draft of a tax research. So these are different examples that you can bring in to start off in your AI journey. So you pick something you can measure, whether it's hours saved, whether it's faster turnaround, to build the momentum and justify the next spend. So the key there is to define the objective before the tool. That'll then help you then prepare your team. Now, what does that mean? Because here's where the key outcome is. I mean, you either make it or break it here. So tech adoption is all about making sure your team is ready to use the tools given to them. So of course, where do they fail then? So it's either staff who fear replacement, saying, hey, if I use AI, then maybe I'm not needed. Or staff who overtrust and stop thinking. Basically, they say, hey, AI is always right, so I'm just going to keep using what it comes back with. But that's where, if you remember from the previous slide, the human involvement is key there. So the key here is, again, it's a training problem. So we need to invest in real enablement. How do you create the right prompts? How do you do a critical review? When do you escalate and make sure that your information you're getting is right? So it's not a one-time lunch and learn. So you need to constantly train your team in the tools that they're using. And what you don't see is, so the the curve keeps climbing. So the next stage is scaling and embed. How do you standardize use cases? How do you fold it into your workflows? I'm going back to one of the poll results from before, where we had almost 10% of the respondents today say that they have integrated AI into business processes. That's awesome. That's amazing. I'm sure if we do the exact same poll a year later, I wouldn't be surprised if that number is 30%, 40%. Back to what Jared was saying, it's the speed with which things are changing today that's amazing. So what does this all mean? So I want to close it out with the last slide on the future of AI in accounting. AI adoption, it's roughly quadrupled in a year. There was a poll that I read. I'm sorry, I don't remember who the poll was from, but it's gone to almost 41%. And 77% are planning to increase investment in AI. The AI tax research has nearly doubled. So the question is, stop being if, it's become how fast, because your competitors and the clients have already answered that. So AI adoption will continue to grow. The second part of it is automation will reduce repetitive work. I mean, we've seen that. Some of us who grew up in Excel, I'll be the first to admit I was one who grew up in Excel. I used to create macros because I got tired of typing the same thing over and over again. So the easiest thing, create a macro, do it, and continue on. So the compliance-heavy data entry work that fills schedules for decades is now being automated. But it's good only if you get ahead of it. You saw Dirk show that example of time entry. Dirk could have easily just taken this time and said, okay, I'm just going to put it all in the application, but here's AI coming in and helping him. Now, why does that help? Because now it goes into advisory services as they'll become more valuable. You now have more time to give high value output to your customers. So compliance will become commoditized. Judgment, insight, and relationship will become the premium. Almost 90% of the firms are providing advisory services today. So they can use AI to scale and personalize it. Because now with AI, you can move up the value chain. You've moved from compliance hours to becoming the trusted advisor. So then what's the next one? So data readiness will be a competitive advantage. Back to the complexity around all the different applications, the systems that you have in place. If the data is not ready for using AI, for using it in ways that will make you become an advisor, you're going to be left behind. So you have to be making sure that the data is ready so that you can use it as a competitive advantage. So the last thing I'm going to say here is human expertise will remain essential. You know, it was interesting. Before I came on the call, I actually had a black background rather than the blue one. And I decided to go to the blue one because it literally looked like I was just a bob, a head floating around. And I was going to say, I am an AI Bob, but then I realized, but that would completely defeat the purpose of the last line here, where human expertise will remain essential. So that's why I changed it over to a blue background. So the key is that AI isn't replacing us. I mean, there is, if you remember from an AI CPA poll, there's a projected shortage of almost 350,000 CPAs by 2030. AI will help fill that gap, not close the door. So the irreplaceable stays human. Judgment, ethical accountability, trust, sitting across the table, all that will still be there. Now, I might have to eat my words 5 years from now when there's a robot that does the same thing. But as it stands today, humans are much more required. With that, in the last 5 minutes, we have one more poll that I'd like to take you to.
Great, thank you. This is the fourth and final poll that should be up on everyone's screen now. So what next steps will your firm take based on today's webinar? So our options here are develop an AI adoption strategy, evaluate or upgrade our ERP system, improve our data readiness for AI, explore additional training resources on AI and ERP, or finally unsure. We'll keep this poll open for about 10 more seconds for everyone out there in the audience who's not responded yet. Okay, let's take a quick look at the results here. A little bit of a mix out there, but some in the audience still a little bit unsure. A lot are also saying improve our data readiness for AI and exploring additional training and resources as well.
I mean, this is good, actually. The unsure is very, very common. It's always, how do I now start using it? But, you know, one of the other key pieces is I love almost 20%, a fifth of the team of the respondents have said that they're going to develop an AI adoption strategy, which is excellent, just in my opinion. Dirk, Jared, thoughts?
Yeah, I agree, Jerome. The unsure number, I think there continues to be uncertainty because, again, at the speed at which everything is moving and changing, and I look back, so much just changed in the last 6 months. So I think that leaves a tremendous amount of opportunity, though, as well. I think now is the time to dig into AI and start to evaluate processes, get systems in place. So now is the right time.
Yeah, and I would say the unsure people are doing the right things, right? They're trying to get educated and attend webinars like this and figure out a plan. So I think everybody on this call is moving forward, and that's what we all need to do.
Mm-hmm.
So to conclude, we do have an AI readiness here at PracticeERP. If you're interested in learning about our AI readiness, please reach out to us. We'd love to learn more about your firm and see if there's some ways we could help. So we got a couple minutes left for Q&A. Are there any key questions you would like to call out?
Yeah, there were some great audience questions. I know we probably don't have time to get to all of them, but we'll see if we can get to one or two here. So one attendee is asking, can you recommend a beginning AI tool or tools?
I think for most CPA firms, we see most firms already using a lot of the Microsoft tool set. My recommendation would be see if you can get a Copilot license in your organization, and I would start playing around with Copilot. It gives you access to a lot of your Microsoft 365 information if you have that in your firm already. It's a good place to start. And again, ask AI how to get started with AI. So do that first.
Great, thank you. And this question kind of goes back to some of the security concerns the audience was having, I think, in that poll question. So how can you see firms that either are government agencies and audit public funds, or are CPA firms and get into government type funds and auditing where there's really sensitive information? How can you see them being able to utilize AI with that consideration for security?
So I think for me, I'll jump in, guys. Feel free to add. For me, it comes down to, I think it's identifying the use cases where there's zero risk of exposing information. So maybe it's identifying use cases that aren't specifically audit or tax prep, but other ancillary things that you're doing that are taking a lot of time. Automate those tasks that don't involve client data. I think that's probably the safest to start. Getting beyond that, you're going to have to, unfortunately, right now, it's about digging into each individual provider's security and data information practices. So you'll have to prepare to do some legwork. But I think there's probably, if you really take a look, there's probably a lot of processes that don't involve client data that could free up time. And I would start there.
And I would add on to it, also take a look at the contract that you have signed with your clients to see if there's anything specified in there in terms of how the data can be used, because more and more clients are now putting that into the contract as well. So everything that Jared said, we just add in the contract piece in it too.
Great, thank you. I know we're at the top of the hour, so we'll wrap up here. Thank you, everyone in the audience who had questions. We'll certainly get those over to the PracticeERP team for follow-up after the event. And as Dirk had mentioned, there is an AI readiness assessment that they do. We'll make sure to get that link over to everyone, the follow-up email. We highly encourage you to check out PracticeERP and use those resources to see where your firm's at and where you can improve.